Hello and welcome to the Natanya G podcast. I'm your host, Natanya G, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey towards lifelong health and vitality. With nearly 30 years in the fitness and wellness industry, I've had the privilege of working coast to coast, meeting incredible professionals, mentors, and leaders. My goal is to bring their expertise to you, offering not just information, but practical tools you can apply in your own life. On this podcast, we'll interview a variety of professionals, each with unique approaches and specialties. I believe everyone is unique, and what works for one person might not work for another. True success happens when you match who you are with what you do. Please note that the content shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Joining us for episode 6 is Anna M. She's been courageously managing relapsing-remitting multiple sclerosis since 2011. And thanks to a powerful combination of conventional medicine, complementary therapies, and holistic treatments, including lifestyle changes such as exercise, nutrition, stress reduction, and Rolfing and massage therapy, Anna has been in remission since 2020. In this episode, she opens up about her journey, the challenges she faced, and how she's found balance and healing through a well-rounded approach to health and wellness. You don't want to miss this inspiring conversation. Thank you so much for being here, Anna.
Hi, Natanya.
Hello. The reason why I brought you here is you and I have known each other for a couple of years now.
Yes.
And your story has continued to inspire me and make me want to be a better partner and collaborator for not only you, but for all of my clients. And you came into me looking for alternatives for pain management. You were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and we can go into the year of that and so forth. And you came to me for Rolfing as an alternative practice.
Yes.
Can you talk to me a little bit about your experience in getting diagnosed and what that was like for you?
Yes, definitely. So MS, multiple sclerosis, in short MS, is a very complex condition. It's a chronic condition, and it's believed to be an autoimmune disorder where basically your body attacks itself, and in particular your nerves. And so because obviously, as we know, our nerves basically regulate our body, the totality of our body. Right. The symptoms of MS can range greatly. And so you will never find two MS patients with the exact same symptoms. I was diagnosed 13 years ago now, but it was like not an easy process because the disease is so complex and the diagnostic criteria have changed over time. And so from the first attack, and we will go into what an attack is just briefly, basically took me 7 years to get diagnosed officially. And so MS, the way it works is you have attacks or relapses, which are active times of inflammation where the damage to the nerves is actively happening. And then you have remission phases when you get better, your symptom may disappear or may reduce. And it's just basically a roller coaster, if you will. And the symptoms, like we were saying, can vary greatly from extreme fatigue, which does not get better if you have a good night's sleep. Right. So it's chronic fatigue, basically. You can have vision problems, problems with your mobility, joint pain. Some people end up in a wheelchair because basically your immune system is attacking your nerves. The information and from your brain to your limbs or to other parts of your body don't get through. And that's why. And so really, even, cognitive problems, swallowing difficulty, urinary difficulties or problems, really, the symptoms vary greatly. Mine were sensory and pain, definitely. So when I first had my first attack, I could not feel half of my body, like my right hand side from my neck down. I could not tell you if a surface was hot or cold. I had this intense pins and needle sensation, burning, and that's all pointing to nerve pain or nerve damage, basically. And unfortunately, there is no cure for MS yet. I like to say yet, because science is like really working hard, and medicine is, in the last decade, has made huge progress in the field of MS. But basically, the main goal of medicine is to suppress your immune system, which is hyperactive, attacking healthy nerves, right? And so it's kind of scary going from you're a healthy person, you have fatigue, maybe brain fog, to oh, I need to take this med, and it's so scary with these scary side effects. And to me, basically, when I was officially diagnosed was right before the pandemic. I did not want to take any of these meds because they're so scary. And that turned out to be not a great decision. I should have listened to my doctor. But then I ended up choosing one of the most effective therapies out there right at the beginning of the pandemic, and ending up being immunosuppressed when we were dealing, globally with COVID, and not knowing how to deal with it because it's so new and it's so scary. And so,
What were the steps to your diagnosis? Because I remember hearing some of the symptoms that you had, and they were very similar, like red flags went up.
Yes.
And, maybe I was possibly jumping to conclusions, but, migraines, joint pain. So when you first went in with these symptoms, what was the whole process like of actually getting diagnosed? Because I'm sure, a lot of times we go in and we have certain symptoms and they're like, oh, it's this, oh, it's you, and they send you many different ways.
Absolutely.
So can you walk through for somebody what that was like so that we can hear like what the symptoms were and how you actually got to the diagnosis?
Absolutely. Okay. So back in 2011, when I first got my symptoms, my primary doctor was very alarmed because they were clearly nerve pain related. And unless you have an injury that damages your nerves, it's very alarming. It means there is something wrong with your central nervous system, so your brain and your spinal cord. And so I was sent into the ER. They got me into an MRI, a magnetic resonance imaging, to look at my brain and spine. And they saw spots. And usually spots are they don't know what spots are, like just by looking at the images.
On your spinal cord?
In my spinal cord and in my brain. Okay. And the funny thing is, you were saying migraines. If you see spots on the brain, migraines could do that. So that's very non-specific.
Okay.
And so to confirm a diagnosis of MS, what they did back then was to get a sample of my spinal fluid, which is in itself not a very fun process because it's a really big needle that goes into your spine. But when they analyze the spinal fluid, they can see markers of inflammation. And if those markers are present, they can piece the puzzle together and they can, that can lead to a diagnosis. Back then, the spinal fluid was negative, so I was not diagnosed. And then when you have a flare-up of symptoms like that, there's only one thing to do, and that's steroids, because those will kind of calm down the inflammation that's going on. And after that, I was fine, air quotes, for 7 years, except for extreme fatigue. I almost had forgotten that I had that episode, right? And the symptoms came back, and when you've had them before, they're kind of unmistakable.
Yep.
And I went through again to MRI, spinal fluid, and that time the spinal fluid was positive, and so that was like kind of conclusive. But MS can be mistaken for many other things. And over time, the criteria to diagnose have changed. They're still changing, so it's extremely challenging. And you need a neurologist to help you.
Okay.
Towards the diagnosis.
Okay. There were some initial symptoms. I remember you talking about vitamin D levels.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So there seems to be, they don't know what causes MS. They think it's a combination of genetics and environmental factors. And they've seen that one of the environmental factors is if you live away from the equator at a higher latitude, and you're less exposed to the sun in northern countries, for example, you have less vitamin D, and your levels are low, maybe chronically, and that is kind of a predictor that you might develop MS. So what they've been doing is using vitamin D supplementation. Like that's like your basis where you can then build upon. And so when they look at your levels, a neurologist will want you to be in the higher range of your vitamin D levels for optimal, management of MS. But yeah, vitamin D was like a big one.
Yeah.
Among other things.
Yeah. You've implemented a lot of different things to manage the pain, and that's part of the inspiration as I've been hearing your journey, healthy habits, and you've kind of looked at your treatment in more of a holistic approach. Can you talk a little bit about like what avenues or what things you have found that have really come together and made your program?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are many things that one can do to manage MS. Beyond taking the meds, right? And one time a doctor, a neurologist basically told me, the second most effective thing that you can do to manage your chronic condition is to work on your lifestyle and especially exercise. Exercise is like after the meds, exercise is the most powerful thing that you can do to keep really MS and the symptoms at bay. So definitely
Was there certain types of exercise that they recommended? Was it cardio? Was it strength training? Was it just movement?
There is not really a consensus on what's the best type.
Got it.
The thing is, with MS, heat and overheating is problematic because that exacerbates your symptoms. And so, definitely don't go into a marathon in the, midday sun, in the desert.
Right.
That's not maybe the best for you. But as long as you try and avoid overheating when exercising and listen to your body. Also, because MS affects your energy so much, you have to be kind of smart. And so for me, I've seen that low impact workouts often. So every day, maybe 20 to 30 minutes of a low impact exercise like cycling or walking at a brisk pace. They are easier to stick to than a big workout, maybe an hour of crazy sweating, and then the next day I'm exhausted, I cannot get out of bed, and I cannot exercise. So, you have to kind of be smart with how you manage your energy, because your energy is very limited when you have MS. Another thing that definitely, it's another thing worth considering is nutrition and hydration. So MS is a disease where there's a lot of inflammation. And so whatever you can do to curb that inflammation is going to help you. So they can't really recommend a specific diet because it's so hard to do clinical studies with diet because there are so many variables.
Of course.
And so what they tend to agree on is that the Mediterranean diet is really good because it's high in, colorful vegetables, lean protein, whole, grains, less processed food, less added sugar, which is all part of, an anti-inflammatory diet.
Right.
So definitely, and I have experimented a lot. I've seen, I've tried eliminating gluten, eliminating dairy, eliminating sugar. Obviously, I always recommend listen to your doctors, don't do crazy things, always ask for advice and help from a healthcare professional. But you also have to listen to your body, right? If you don't feel great after eating, a meal full of processed carbs,
right,
maybe you should reduce that, right? So playing around with that. And hydration, which is something that you and I have talked about at length. Hydration is ideal for muscle health. And I've seen that just introducing an electrolyte mix in the whole picture has helped tremendously with lots of things. Like in an electrolyte mix, there is magnesium that will help with muscles. Spasm, for example, spasticity, muscle stiffness is like one of the main symptoms of MS, can be one. Migraines, I suffer from migraines. Migraines are more prevalent in MS people. Electrolytes have been a game changer for me. So really paying attention to how you hydrate your body. And also stress. Stress reduction, stress management is super important. Stress, chronic stress, especially being constantly in fight or flight, is so inflammatory for us.
It is.
And just managing that will help you tremendously. You don't have to do anything specific. You have to find what works for you. Can be breath work, can be meditation, can be just cuddling your pet or going on a walk. Mine too.
Yeah.
Journaling, if that's your thing, reading a book, just finding those pockets of calm, protecting your peace on a daily basis will help tremendously with the general inflammation. And, all of the complementary modalities that I've been seeking out, including Rolfing with you, massage therapy, not only that is helpful with my joints, my muscles, my alignment, my breathing, but also just the amount of stress relief that one finds in a session with you. Just the extreme relaxation that's priceless. It's just one step towards reducing your stress, reducing your pain, managing your inflammation. So that has been one. In the past, I've done acupuncture, which has been extremely helpful. And also, again, going back to the stress reduction and the pain management, you and I have talked about the vagus nerve and stimulating the vagus nerve. So I've been lucky enough to work with a physical therapist who is doing some studies on the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is very interesting because it's one of the main nerves in our body that connects the brain and the rest of the body. And it's the nerve responsible for the other mode of the nervous system. So not the fight or flight. That's very helpful and was very helpful in evolution to keep us alive. And now it's like we're fight or flight, every notification on our phone, we're, our hair on our heads go up. But the vagus nerve is responsible for the rest and digest. And so the stress relief, the stress reduction. And you can stimulate the vagus nerve in many different ways. Deep diaphragmatic breathing is a very free way of stimulating it. You can even sing and stimulate your vagus nerve. So if you like to sing in the shower, I encourage you to do that. Gargling stimulates the vagus nerve because because it's basically your vagus nerve runs in the back of your throat, and by doing that motion, that's going to stimulate it. I have been playing around with a TENS unit, one of those electrostimulation devices that physical therapists use for muscle recovery. And with my physical therapist, under her guidance, we've basically testing this method, and it includes applying the TENS unit on your left ear, because that's the easiest way to access the vagus nerve in your body with a TENS unit, obviously. And that's something that I've been consistently using because it's super easy to kind of include in your day.
Yeah.
And I try to do it in the evening, so as to promote that rest and digest phase. And it's been extremely helpful. You know, MS can also disrupt your sleep. So any way you can reclaim that sleep for you, it's going to be just money in the bank, health-wise, for you.
You've really done a great job at, I feel, hitting things from all these different angles, and you continue to stay open about it, which is interesting. And a lot of the suggestions that you're giving, not just with somebody that was diagnosed with MS, but it sounds like these are some really valuable tools that many people can incorporate in day to day, just trying, to improve their health, improve their wellness. And I love that you brought up Rolfing, which is a form of bodywork or structural integration, and how it has a calming and relaxing effect. And I'm just going to highlight something here. A lot of times people that are familiar with Rolfing think it's painful. I've heard about Rolfing. It's really painful. And yes, in the past, we have had some heavy-handed Rolfers when we looked at the body in a certain way. And now we know more. Just like advances in medicine, we have advances when we learn more about the body, we integrate it more. And I love that you brought up the relaxing effect that it does have for you. So thank you for that. I'm wondering if you were to go back and talk to somebody, just getting started in health wellness, maybe noticing a couple of symptoms. Oh, my vitamin D levels, my doctor had mentioned that, are low, or I'm fatigued all the time. If you were to go back and talk to somebody about little things that they can do, what would you recommend?
Yeah, well, definitely listen to your doctors, but also because, again, I'm not a doctor, so, this is my personal experience, but you know your body best, and so it's your right to, pursue extra tests or, just investigating something deeply if it concerns you. For me, if I were to go back, I was so scared when something like this hits you, you basically don't know what's happening. You're in shock. And as someone who has always paid attention to my lifestyle and my diet and try to be as healthy as possible, to me, I was in complete shock. And it was almost like I was blaming myself. Like I must have done something wrong that led to this diagnosis, right? And so for me, it's also like a mindset shift that I would tell my younger self that, the sooner you can stop obsessing over this, the sooner you accept that you can't change this, the sooner you'll realize that there are so many other changes that you can make, so many other things that you can control in your life to make this better, to make the outcome better for you. Right. And so just pursuing, definitely listening to my doctors, even if things are scary, to just be confident and believe that also your body is great at self-healing. And so if you can support your body the best you can, you're taking your meds diligently and you try complementary medicine and complementary techniques, you will find what works for you and you will find your balance. It's attainable.
It is. Yeah, that's right. Because everybody is unique and there is a magic formula for you or for that person. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey and where you're at and all your tips and tools. I've been wanting to get it out to more people ever since we've met. So I really appreciate your time and your transparency and honesty. And thank you.
Thanks, Natanya. Thanks for supporting me also in our journey together.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.